I was folding laundry on a Tuesday night when I found the divorce papers she'd hidden in her gym bag. She was planning to take half my savings behind my back, but I got there first. The room was quiet, except for the hum of the dryer. Sarah was in the shower, humming like nothing was wrong. I held those papers in my hand and felt the ground shift under me. This wasn't just betrayal. This was war in slow motion. And if you stick around, I'll tell you exactly how I turned the tables. Without saying a single word, my name's John, and this isn't the kind of story I ever thought I'd be telling. For years I read other people's posts online, stories about betrayal, heartbreak, blindsiding, breakups, and I'd shake my head thinking, glad that's not me. I thought Sarah and I were different. We were one of those quiet couples, not flashy, not dramatic, just solid. We had 6 years together, 4 of them married. There were lazy Sunday mornings with coffee and crossword puzzles, silly arguments over what to order for dinner, nights when we fell asleep mid-movie on the couch, wrapped up in each other's warmth. She had this way of smoothing out my rough days, with just a look or a touch on the arm, and I thought I did the same for her. I really believed we had something most people only hoped for. But about 6 months ago, something shifted. It wasn't big at first, just little things. Her laugh stopped reaching her eyes. Her hugs felt shorter. She started working out more, staying late at work, locking her phone. I asked if everything was okay and she'd smile, say she was just tired. I wanted to believe her. So I did. Until the night I was folding laundry and reached into her gym bag. I wasn't snooping, I just saw it open and figured I'd help her out. That's when I found a plain manila envelope and inside it, divorce papers. My name typed in bold, my finances listed like line items on a receipt. She hadn't talked to me, not once. No fights, no warning, just a lawyer and a plan. That moment, it split something open inside me. But instead of confronting her, I waited. I watched, and I started planning too. Because if she wanted to play it like a business transaction, I was going to show her just how sharp I could be. It started small, the kind of changes you wouldn't notice unless you were really watching. Sarah had always been pretty laid back with her phone. She used to leave it around the house on the counter while she cooked, face up on the couch when we watched movies, sometimes forgotten in the bedroom overnight. But then she started carrying it everywhere, to the kitchen, the bathroom, even when folding towels in the hallway. I joked once, "What, are you secretly working for the CIA now?" And she laughed, light and easy, saying work had been emailing her more lately. That would have been fine, except the next day her phone had a password. She'd never locked it before. I asked about it, casual-like, and she said something about new security stuff and how hackers were targeting people at her office. Sounded reasonable enough, but her tone didn't sit right. I didn't push. I didn't want to come off controlling, but then she started taking calls outside. It wasn't like her. She'd always chatted openly, even put calls on speaker while cooking. Now, every time the phone rang, she'd glance at the screen and say, "Be right back," disappearing to the porch or bedroom. If I asked who it was, I'd get, "Just a friend from work," or "Nothing important," and then she started placing her phone face down. Always face down. One time, I reached across the table for a napkin, and my hand brushed close to her phone. She grabbed it so fast, it felt like a reflex, one that came from hiding something. That's when I stopped pretending not to notice. It wasn't just the phone. Our whole rhythm changed. Sarah used to be all in when we talked, really present. Now, when I brought up plans, vacations, our anniversary, even replacing the beat-up couch in the living room, she'd nod and say, "Yeah, maybe," before changing the subject. The warmth was fading, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was suddenly just background noise in my own marriage. The turning point came on a Wednesday. She said she was grabbing coffee with a friend after work. Nothing unusual, she did that sometimes. But I happened to be nearby after running errands, so I thought I'd stop by and surprise her. Nothing dramatic, just a sweet hello, maybe pick up the tab. When I got to the cafe, I didn't see her inside. I checked twice. Then I spotted her across the street, pacing on the sidewalk, phone to her ear, her other hand tugging nervously at her sleeve. I stayed in the car, not trying to spy, just something felt off. I couldn't hear much, but a few words cut through. "It's almost ready, and starting fresh soon." My stomach turned cold. That didn't sound like catching up with a friend. That sounded like plans. Big ones. When she got home later, I didn't mention seeing her. I asked how coffee was. She launched into this whole story, how her friend was upset about a guy, how she cried over her latte, how she needed advice. It was a perfectly polished little script. Too perfect. Then, almost like she was reading a cue card, she said, "You know, we should really get organized, like with our finances, passwords, documents, just in case something ever happened." We'd never talked like that before. I asked, "What kind of emergency are you thinking about?" And she gave me this half shrug like, it wasn't a big deal. "I just think it's smart," she said. "You know, if one of us ends up in the hospital or if we need to move money quickly or something." On paper, her words made sense, but in real life, they felt rehearsed, like she'd practiced them. I smiled and said, "Yeah, sure, good idea," but inside my mind was racing. Why now? Why the sudden interest in accounts we'd kept separate for years? Why the secrecy, the timing, the carefully delivered lines? Something was wrong, and in that moment, I stopped trusting her and started preparing for whatever she wasn't saying. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her voice kept echoing in my head, the cafe phone call, the way she looked through me lately. It all lined up into something I didn't want to believe. I tossed and turned, staring at the ceiling, while the soft hum of the fan filled the room. A few days later, she brought up the money again. I was making a sandwich, just trying to have a normal moment, when she leaned against the kitchen counter, scrolling her phone, and said, "Have you thought about organizing our accounts? Do you know where everything is?" I stopped mid-splice, the knife resting on the cutting board. I turned to her and asked, "Okay, what's going on?" She looked up, startled, like I'd caught her doing something. "You keep bringing this up," I said. "Is there something we need to talk about?" She laughed, nervous and light, waving it off with, "No, nothing's wrong. It's just smart, you know, for emergency." I stared at her for a moment and asked, "Emergencies like what?" She gave me this shrug that felt too easy, too practiced. "Just life stuff," she said flatly. "It's not a big deal, I promise." But it was. It wasn't a suggestion anymore. It felt like she was building something behind my back, piece by piece. The next morning, while she was at work, I sat at my desk with my laptop open and pulled up our joint account. My hands were cold. I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but what I saw made my stomach turn. There were small withdrawals, nothing huge but frequent, steady, over the last few weeks. Not tied to bills, not groceries, just little amounts sliding out, like someone slowly draining a pool. I didn't want to assume the worst, but the pattern was there, and it didn't make sense. I thought about confronting her, but something in my gut told me not to. Not yet. I needed to be smart. That's when I called Mike, an old college buddy, now a lawyer. I laid it all out, the secrecy, the phone, the account stuff. "I'm not trying to be crazy," I said. "I just don't want to get blindsided." He was quiet for a second, then said, "You're not crazy. Better safe than sorry." He told me a few things I could do to protect myself. Nothing illegal, nothing sneaky, just smart steps. That conversation stuck with me, because this wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even just about the money. It was about my life, my security, my sense of what we had. That evening, while Sarah was out for yoga, I sat down and started the process. I reviewed everything, the accounts, my name on the house, retirement funds, even some stocks I'd forgotten about. I didn't touch her stuff, just mine. With Mike's help, I set up a trust under my mom's name. I moved what I could, assets, savings, the house deed, leaving just enough in our shared accounts to keep things quiet. I called my mom and told her I needed her to hold on to a few things just in case. I didn't explain. She didn't ask. "Of course, sweetheart," she said. "Whatever you need." I hung up and stared at the wall for a long time. I felt sick, like I'd just buried something I loved. When Sarah came home that night, she was cheerful, kissed my cheek, asked if I wanted to order Thai food and watch a movie. I nodded, smiled, went along with it. I kept the act up for days. She didn't mention the finances again. In fact, she seemed lighter, like she was waiting for something to happen. That only made me more sure I'd done the right thing. Every now and then I'd catch her watching me, like she was trying to read me. So far, I'd like to think as long as I lived. I gave her nothing, just calm, casual, boring John. And every night, after she went to bed, I double-checked the paperwork. The accounts, the trust, everything was in place, locked down tight. 2 weeks passed like that. Then one Friday evening, she turned off the TV, sat next to me on the couch and said, "We need to talk." My heart thudded in my chest. I already knew what was coming, but hearing it, watching her mouth form the words, that was the moment it became real. She said it like she was ordering coffee, calm, smooth, not even blinking. "I think we should get a divorce." I remember the way her voice didn't shake, like it was something she'd rehearsed in her head 100 times. No anger, no guilt, just a quiet certainty, like she'd already grieved whatever we once had. I sat there, staring, trying to absorb it. She didn't even hesitate, went right into a list of reasons that felt copy-pasted from a self-help book. She needed space, wanted to rediscover herself, felt like she'd lost her identity. None of it made sense, and just when I thought it couldn't sting worse, she added, "I've made a lot of sacrifices for you, and I don't think you appreciate them. I deserve more." That was the moment the air left my lungs. It wasn't just about her leaving, it was the rewrite of our entire history. Like I hadn't stood by her during 3 career changes, covered bills when she quit her job for that yoga retreat, or moved across town so she could be closer to her new office, even when it doubled my commute. I remembered every birthday I planned, every night I cooked when she was too tired, every moment I listened while she cried about things I couldn't fix. And now I was the bad guy? I asked. "Why now?" And she said, without missing a beat, "A friend's been helping me see things clearly." That hit different. Her tone, the phrasing, it didn't sound like venting to a buddy, it sounded like coaching. Someone in her ear, helping her plan like it was a negotiation, not a relationship. I didn't argue. I just said, "If that's how you feel, let's figure out the next steps." She looked surprised I wasn't begging her to stay, but I was already turning gears. Monday came, and with it, the papers. She didn't just want out, she wanted the house, my savings, the car, half the assets I'd worked my whole life to build. She even added vague requests for spousal support. Even though she made good money, it was clear someone was behind this. So I dug. Her social media wasn't private. I went through tags, likes, comments. There was a guy named Chris always liking her posts, dropping comments like, "You've got this," and "Proud of you." I remembered him now, he worked with her. Then I saw a photo on his profile from the same cafe where I'd seen her weeks ago, same day, same background. That starting fresh phone call clicked into place. Still, I wanted to be sure, so I reached out to mutual friends, casual at first. Lisa shut me down quickly, too quickly. Then I called Emily. She was vague, nervous, said she didn't know anything, but later that night, she called back. "This can't come back to me," she said. "I promised." Then she told me Sarah and Chris had been spending time together, that he was helping her through the divorce, that it wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. Saturday, I parked near her apartment. A few hours later, Sarah walked out with Chris. No hand-holding, no kissing, but their body language said enough. Leaning in, smiling like people in the early stages of something they think is real. They drove off in his car. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. She wasn't leaving me for herself. She was leaving me for him and wanted to take everything I had with her. The mediation session came fast. Her lawyer, smug and confident, started rattling off demands like it was all pre-approved. House, assets, savings, car, support. I didn't react. My lawyer slid a folder across the table. "We suggest reviewing these first," he said calmly. Her lawyer opened it, read silently, and suddenly his face changed. "What is this?" he asked, confused. "These documents show all major assets were transferred to a legal trust under my client's mother's name 2 weeks ago," my lawyer said. "It's clean, it's legal, it's done." Silence fell over the room. Her lawyer turned to Sarah. "Did you know about this?" She stared at the paperwork, lips parted, then shot me a look full of fire. "You planned this. You knew—" I said nothing. Her lawyer stammered something about needing time to reconsider their approach, but we all knew there wasn't anything left to fight for. It was locked up, ironclad. Sarah muttered, "You're unbelievable. I can't believe you do this to me." I looked her in the eye and said, quiet but firm, "I didn't do anything to you. I protected myself." Outside the building, she caught me alone, voice low, like a warning. "This isn't over. You'll regret this." I didn't flinch. I just looked her in the eye and said, "My only regret is ever trusting you." After mediation, Sarah unraveled fast. The confident woman who once looked me dead in the eye and told me she deserved more was now leaving voicemails, first calm, saying we needed to talk and could fix this, then sobbing, then raging, calling me greedy, heartless, and cruel. The messages came in waves. like tides trying to erode a rock that refused to budge. My lawyer had told me to stay quiet, to not engage, to let the process play out without emotion, so I listened to him, even when her voice cracked through my phone speaker late at night, even when it brought back old memories I didn't want. She was spiraling, but I stayed still. She went from anger to desperation, telling mutual friends the divorce had been a test or a prank that went too far, trying to paint herself as the victim in a story she had written. And for a moment I started getting odd messages from people we used to know. Didn't know things were that rough between you two. She's really hurting. Even her brother reached out to tell me I should have talked it out before going to war, but their sympathy didn't sit right. Why would someone file legal papers for a prank? Why demand half a man's life savings to test his love? Then, a week later, a friend of mine, Tom, who I hadn't seen since our college days, reached out. He said, "Ma'am, I think you need to see this." We met in a small diner out near the edge of town, one of those places with peeling booths and a jukebox that only plays sad songs from the 70s. He looked nervous, like what he was about to show me weighed heavy. He pulled out his phone and handed it to me. On the screen were screenshots text between Sarah and Chris, shared through a mutual friend who had grown uncomfortable with what they were planning. The texts weren't vague. Sarah had written, "Once the settlement's done, we'll have everything we need. Just need him to agree." Chris responded, "Don't back down, make him feel guilty. He owes you. We'll start fresh once you've got the money." My hands shook as I scrolled. It wasn't just emotional distance or bad timing. It wasn't even just infidelity. It was a setup, carefully orchestrated and cold. I sat there in that vinyl booth, the smell of burnt coffee in the air, and realized I'd been married to someone I didn't really know at all. Tom gave me a sad nod and said, "Thought you should know. People deserve to see what she's really doing." He didn't have to say more. That evening, the texts started circulating among our old friend group. One by one, the messages to me stopped. Some friends sent quiet apologies. A few admitted they'd felt something was off but didn't want to believe it. Her story began to crumble under the weight of her own words. The woman who tried to take everything, my home, my money, my dignity, ended up with nothing but her name on a legal document and a ghost of a man she used to control. Chris? He disappeared the moment her plan failed. No more likes or comments on her posts, no more selfies, just silence. When the final papers were signed, Sarah was left with only her personal items, no house, no cash, no leverage. My mom's trust had held firm, and every asset was safe. I walked out of the courthouse alone, the fall air crisp and cold, but somehow I felt warm for the first time in a long while. I drove home, rolled down the windows, let the wind hit my face, and smiled. I hadn't done it to destroy her, I'd done it to protect myself. To preserve the pieces of my life that I'd built with care, sacrifice, and hard work. She called me again that night, voice trembling. "Please, can we just talk? I'll do anything." I didn't pick up. She tried again, 2 nights later. "You don't have to forgive me, just don't let it end like this." But it had ended, and I didn't owe her closure, not after everything. A week later, I was in the kitchen, the house quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like peace, not loneliness. My mom showed up with 2 gallons of paint and a box of tools. "Let's make this place yours again," she said, and we got to work. We patched up old holes in the wall, painted over memories, made new ones in their place. The house smelled like fresh paint and hope. The room that once held our shared memories now felt like a blank page, and in that space, I began to feel something I hadn't in a long time. Freedom. The kind of freedom that doesn't come with revenge or victory, but with knowing you did what was necessary, even when it hurt. I don't hate Sarah. I don't wish her harm. I just don't wish her back. Some people are meant to teach us hard lessons, and she taught me mine. Trust isn't blind, it's earned and protected. And when someone shows you who they are, you don't argue. You believe them. Thank you for sticking around through this story. If it resonated with you or reminded you of something you've gone through, let me know in the comments. And if you want more real-life stories like this messy, raw but honest hit, that subscribe button, every view, every comment, every click reminds us we're not alone in our struggles. The biggest lesson I took from this, protect your peace, because once you reclaim it, nothing, no person, no betrayal can take it away again. If this story hit close to home or even just made you stop and think, leave a comment and let me know what part resonated with you. I read every one. And if you've ever felt blindsided, underestimated, or forced to rebuild from nothing, just know you're not alone. We're building a space here for real people with real stories, and your voice matters. So if you haven't already, hit subscribe and tap the bell. It's free and it helps more than you know. Sometimes the hardest thing in life isn't losing someone, it's realizing they were never really with you to begin with. But that moment, that quiet, painful truth, it's also the first step toward peace, self-respect, and starting over stronger than before.